Shalom, shalom, everybody from the beautiful Judean hills. And it's getting colder. It's winter time. All these double layers on us in order to protect ourselves in the cold. Well, that's the reality. And if we're cold here, then that means our soldiers up in Lebanon are also very, very cold. And also part of the war strategy since the beginning was that we wouldn't have to fight in Lebanon for the winter months, because not only is it cold, but it's rainy and it gets muddy and it's forestry up there and mountainy, not the sympathetic area to be fighting in. So that could also be part of the thinking regarding of appeasing the pressure, the immoral blackmail of the Biden administration to be going into the ceasefire deal. So let's talk about that right now. So our holy IDF soldiers who've been fighting up in Lebanon and in Gaza, they want to win. They don't want to be stopped. They want to continue going until we end this war, to ensure that all northern residents who've been evacuated from their homes for more than a year can return back to their homes knowing that they are totally safe. They don't have to fear, not about rockets, not about being shot at from across the border, and not from infiltrations of Hamas that we know. The army knew then and didn't do anything about it, and didn't warn the government to do anything about it. They didn't even want to go to war against Hezbollah to stop it. But after our soldiers went in there and our forces went in there and they found all of the secret bases right along the border where they were planning incursion, infiltration to massacre tens of thousands of Israeli citizens via tunnels over through the border fence, our soldiers have seen it in there. Both of my sons have seen the tremendous infrastructure that Hezbollah built up over the years. And everybody knows that if we allow Hezbollah to come back, and again, even according to the ceasefire, even though Hezbollah is officially forbidden to go back, how do we know who's a Hezbollah fighter or not? We know the Lebanese army is also corrupted by Hezbollah, so they could put on Lebanese army uniforms, but be Hezbollah. They could go in their civilian clothing and still be Hezbollah. They can go right up to the border. And Iran, after the Second Lebanon War in 2006, Iranian funding built up those villages and built up those infrastructure so that within months, Hezbollah was ready to attack Israel. So we all know that can happen now. We can't trust the ceasefire. We can't trust the international community and countries that they're going to be the referees to see if Hezbollah is going according to the ceasefire or not. We can't allow them back to be able to invest and build up that infrastructure to terrorize us ever again. So how do I know that this ceasefire is temporary and the war is going to continue? Most probably not until Trump becomes president in January, because Netanyahu has not told the residents of the north that they could return to their homes. If we thought that this was going to hold and there would be safety because of this ceasefire, the government would say, everyone go back to their homes, everything's fine. But the government and Netanyahu are not telling the people up north to return to their homes because we know it's not safe. This ceasefire is not about bringing protection. This ceasefire is about stopping or having the Biden administration cease firing via its threats and arms embargoes and potential sanctions from the United Nations and United Nations resolutions that are anti-Israel. That's what this ceasefire is about. For the Biden administration to cease from its anti-Israel activities that's stopping us from winning. It's not about allowing our holy Israeli residents to return to their homes up north. So that's why I am positive that this war is going to continue, and we're going to be going back into Lebanon and doing everything we have to do in order, and remaining there forever, in order that northern residents can return to their homes. Because it's only by us living there, I said living because I know one day we're going to be living there, because those are the tribal lands of Asher and Naphtali. So yes, we're going to be living in southern Lebanon, which is really northern Israel, one day. But in the meantime, before we resettle it, the IDF is going to be there for years in a buffer zone. Later on, we'll resettle also, but for the first few years, it's going to be maybe less. It should be only less, but definitely for the first few years, it's just going to be IDF forces in a buffer zone in southern Lebanon, hopefully up to the Litani River at least, if not more. So that's why the ceasefire, it's just something to hold over the Biden administration to hopefully not do more harmful anti-Israel activities towards us until Trump becomes president. Now, one thing that's crazy here in the news cycle in Israel regarding the ceasefire is that it united, and I spoke about this in the last video I did about the ceasefire, it united left, right, and center to be against the ceasefire because everyone knows, wait, the war's not over yet, and northern residents can't return to their homes. But what's the craziest thing about the left coming out and talking bad about Netanyahu agreeing to the ceasefire? Because it was the left, and it was the leaders of the IDF and the intelligence and the security apparatus, that they were against going to war in Lebanon since day one. Not only were they against going into it, every step of the way, even after we started the military offensive in Lebanon, they wanted to stop, and they were calling to stop it. Right? Netanyahu was not just going against the Biden administration not wanting us to go into Lebanon and destroy Hezbollah and its infrastructure of being able to harm and terrorize us. He was going against senior officials in the security and intelligence establishment. All right? Now, I'm going to tie this together with the latest scandal that, again, I've spoken to you about in the past, and it's headline news here in Israel. It continues to be headline news on a daily basis. Of the Hamas document that was leaked to the Prime Minister's office. All right, so they're using this as a scandal to try to topple Netanyahu, because it was Netanyahu who ordered for that document to be leaked to his office, and therefore he did something illegal. Folks, do you want to know what the scandal is? The scandal is that heads of intelligence were refraining from escalating intelligence documentation to the Prime Minister. That's the scandal. And I've spoken about this before. It's not just regarding this Hamas document, but the intelligence and army, even before October 7th, were stopping the escalation of intelligence information, even the night of. Right? I'll give you one example. The night of, months later, it came out that the intelligence knew that Hamas put in Israeli SIM cards in their phones. Hundreds of them, like 300, 400, 500 terrorists put Israeli SIM cards in their phones. The night of October 6th. So that's a warning. Look, oh my God, why would they have to put in Israeli SIM cards? Because they're going into Israeli territory. Don't you think that's something intelligence should be escalating up the ladder to the defense minister and to the prime minister? Right? They didn't escalate that information. That's only one example of many examples showing how, in a sense, there has been a military coup in Israel, not by using tanks and driving those tanks to the Knesset and taking over government, but there's been a silent military coup where they were stopping to escalate information to the government, and they were making the decisions and basically making decisions of what to do or what not to do based on what not to tell the government and what not to tell Prime Minister Netanyahu. So there's been a silent coup over the past years by certain heads of the military and intelligence establishment. So now I want to give you another scandal that is not being treated like a scandal. Remember, I keep on telling you about the miraculous James Bond-like action by Israel that took out the heads of the Hezbollah command by their walkie-talkies and by their beepers. Well, guess what? 15 hours before that James Bond-like action of beepers and walkie-talkies, before that act, there was an Israeli journalist by the name of Ronen Bergman. And here I'm posting the article in Hebrew. I haven't found translations in English, but here it is in Hebrew, where he writes that senior defense officials have told him that Israel is about to do a special operation in Lebanon that's going to totally screw up the whole Middle East. That's a scandal. He wrote this the 15 hours before that operation. First of all, the senior defense officials who leaked that information should be court-martialed, because by leaking that information and having it, and then that journalist should be prosecuted as well. They are endangering all of Israel. They're endangering the operation. That's something that should be prosecuted. That's a security breach, a security leak that should be prosecuted. Guess what? Not prosecuted, because the defense officials and the media establishment are part of this deep state that were against Netanyahu and Israel going to war against Hezbollah, Iran, Lebanon to stop them from terrorizing us. So they leaked that to stop it. That one act, which is the most targeted act of taking out terrorists ever done in all of history and modern history, that turned the war around. Until that point, with that act, Israel and the whole security intelligence establishment and Israeli politicians were afraid to go to war against Hezbollah because of their infrastructure that they had waiting to attack us and kill us and kill our soldiers on the ground if we go in and invade. But that one act totally neutered, and I've spoken about this before, neutered their command structure, their senior command, their middle command. Then we got Nasrallah after that. That turned the war into our favor. And it was leaked. It was leaked by senior defense officials to a journalist who have not been prosecuted, and who the justice system and the justice system of the army have not called out as scandalous, and they're not prosecuting the journalist who used that information and published it. No, that scandal they're now talking about, because that's part of the deep state's agenda to harm Netanyahu and this government and topple it and stop us from winning this war. Instead, they're going after two reserve soldiers who both happen to be ultra-Orthodox, from ultra-Orthodox families, right? The other scandal is they're trying to delegitimize the ultra-Orthodox for not joining the army, but here they're prosecuting two ultra-Orthodox officers for escalating intelligence information to the prime minister that senior officials of the army and intelligence were holding back, all to try to topple Netanyahu. You see where I'm going with this? Where everything is 180 degrees different. Like the scandalous news about this officer and the person who used to work for the prime minister's office being prosecuted by the Secret Service without being allowed to see attorneys for weeks. That's the scandalous headline news. But the news is not talking about the true scandal of the senior defense officials who leaked information about the beeper walkie-talkie operation that truly harmed Israel's security. All right? So this is what we're dealing with in Israel right now. And like I always tell you, we're going to overcome our external enemies, and that's Iran, and that's all the Islamo-Nazis we have around us, and the whole Palestinian national movement, that it's all the Islamo-Nazis that want to destroy us. We're going to overcome them. We're going to overcome the international forces that assist, whether actively or passively, our Islamo-Nazi enemies, which includes the Biden administration, the international communities, the Western European governments, and also we're going to overcome this internal deep state. So now, what is it about this internal deep state? What are they after? Why are they trying to take down this government? Why are they prosecuting and trying to ruin the lives of this soldier and this Eli Feldstein, who are trying to help Israel by ensuring that the prime minister's office got information that was necessary for them to have, that the heads of the intelligence and the army was refraining from escalating to them? What's this all about? Well, watch this video right now of a very, very famous Israeli A-list celebrity who's very much part of the elite, and you could say connected to the same headspace, the same ideology as the deep state, because in this short clip, she says it all.
מפחיד זה כל מה שמקיף אותנו. בדיוק. ואז אנחנו נוכל להתלכד. אבל לא, היום אנחנו מרגישים שמה שבאמת הרבה יותר מפחיד אותנו זה אנחנו. זאת אומרת, מבחינתי, נתניהו והביביסטים הם האויב שלי. הם מסכנים אותי. וואו, זה... כן, הם האויב... בעיניי נתניהו האויב הכי גדול שלנו. כבר שנים.
All right, that's Orna Banai. Again, one of the elite, a small, tiny elite, saying right out that she hates the Netanyahu and the public who support Netanyahu. And that's the right-wing religious public in Israel. She's not talking about hating our enemies, not the Islamo-Nazis who massacred us, mass raped us, and of Hezbollah and Iran and the Palestinian Authority, who are all in on it and support it and want to do it also to her and to all of her family and friends who live in Tel Aviv with her or wherever they live. No, she doesn't voice hatred for them. She voices hatred for her fellow Jews. And that's the headspace of this elite, tiny, deep state elite who are well positioned in the justice system, in the media, in the intelligence services. And that's what we're up against. So, and what are they afraid of? Like, why this hatred?
לדעתי מבועת, מפוחד. הביטחון של מתעורר, הוא חי באיזשהו לופ של פחד נוראי ממה שיקרה כתוצאה מזה שאת יודעת, אנחנו לא נהיה הרוב פה. והפחד הזה, הפחד שמוטמע בקבוצה של האוכלוסייה שאני שייכת אליה, הוא כל כך קשה. אני חושבת שזה באמת, הם בהתקפת חרדה. תחשבי כמה אדם וחווה כעסו כשגירשו אותם מגן עדן. זה מה שקורה עכשיו. מגרשים את הקבוצה הזאת, היא האחוסלית, שיש לה הרבה מאוד זכויות, מגרשים אותה מגן עדן. היא הייתה בגן עדן, וזהו. וזה לא שאלה אם גרשו אותה, לא יגרשו אותה. זהו. לא יהיה לה כבר הגן עדן הזה, שמרימים טלפון ואתה מקבל משרה באקדמיה, ואתה מרים טלפון, מסדרים לבן שלך להיות במקום הזה והזה, ואתה מרים טלפון, מסדרים לך, לא משנה, בבתי המשפט. די, זה נגמר. לא יהיה יותר.
Because they're afraid of us, right-wing, proudly Jewish, regardless of religious level, growing public in Israel, taking over the country and taking over the police and taking over the justice system and taking over the intelligence services and the army, all in democratic ways. Just because we're a growing demography and committed population who want to be involved and look out for the best interests and ensure that the Jewish state of Israel is a strong, proud Jewish state. And they're afraid of us taking over. Hence, they have hatred towards us, and they're seriously willing to endanger our lives and leak true information, security information, like the operation up in the beepers and walkie-talkies operation that endangers Israel and endangers our troops and stops us from wanting to win, but yet throw to the wolves, throw to the dogs, true patriots who are trying to help Israel and ensure that our prime minister and government have the correct information that's being withheld from them by senior officials in the defense and intelligence establishment. So, folks, that's what's going on. And I am positive, and I am optimistic, and I have belief that everything happening today, it's all part of the redemption process of getting us to a better place. And again, this deep state, you have it everywhere. This deep state exists in America, exists in Canada, in Britain, in every Western country. Every country has a deep state where bureaucrats who have a different agenda of the elected officials, and again, the progressive bureaucrats, the progressive ideology that, thank God, was just voted out of power in America, and please God above should help President Trump and his new administration to start on a right foot and help America, the whole freedom-loving world, and stand by Israel doing everything that we have to do. And we're going to one day apply sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, and we're one day going to apply sovereignty in Gaza and resettle both those areas. We're going to resettle and apply sovereignty in the Jewish area, tribal lands of Asher and Naphtali, up in southern Lebanon, really northern Israel. And yes, we have to overcome the internal challenges of these deep states that's against the process of us being strong and proud of our ancestral indigenous identity. And it's happening. It's happening. Not simple. Tragedies happen. And obviously, through all this, we're going to be saving and freeing our captives as soon as possible. Everyone pray for our holy IDF soldiers on the front line of the whole freedom-loving world. Pray for the families of the captives, families of the fallen soldiers, families of the injured soldiers, families, and everyone in the whole freedom-loving world. Everyone, that's what you get from me. You get the beautiful land of Israel and the belief-based, politically incorrect, inspiring truth about the Jewish people, the land of Israel, and the whole freedom-loving world. If you are not yet a subscriber to our Pulse of Israel daily videos, what are you waiting for? Go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And we are a donor-based organization. We need your support. Just go to pulseofisrael.com and every once in a while click on the donate button, because we're heavily censored and shadow banned across all social media channels. It's thanks to your donations that we're able to continue our work and make sure our videos get seen. And we want our videos to get seen by lots of people. And for that, we need lots of money. So the more donations, the bigger the donations, or whatever you're able to give, we are eternally grateful, and this is all part of waking everyone up and bringing us to better times, understanding and sharing the truth beyond the headlines. Shalom, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.